Right, for more coverage of the local COVID-19 situation, I have our Kim Yeon-seung back here in the studio. Welcome back, Yeon-seung.
Thank you for having me.
Right, now how are authorities here in the country explaining the recent retreat in daily infections?
Well, health authorities have been trying to identify all the factors that could have come into play in bringing down the numbers, and they realize the indices on the frequency of how often people make social contact and how much people go out during the weekend have actually been quite high. So it's unlikely that the drop in transmissions was brought forth by the social distancing measures or less contact. Rather, health authorities are crediting the nation's high vaccination rate. South Korea, as of Tuesday morning, has fully vaccinated more than 65% of its total population, as Soa mentioned earlier.
I was just going to ask you, though, before you continue, Yeon-seung, not all countries, though, that have high public vaccination rates have seen a drop in their daily tallies, right?
No, unfortunately not. To put that 65% vaccination rate into some perspective, UK, Germany, France have been starting their vaccine rates ahead of South Korea, but they've only just hit the 65% mark. And in some countries, like the UK, as Soa mentioned earlier, they're reporting very high cases, more than 49,000 cases daily, and that's the highest they've seen since mid-July. So some health experts attribute the surge to the country's early lifting of COVID-19 restrictions and the slow rollout of vaccines for children, which has led to a large number of new cases among children. Japan, on the other hand, has witnessed a rather puzzling success in bringing down its number of COVID-19 infections. They confirmed just 232 new cases on Monday, and this is the first time in more than a year that the daily count has been under 300, which is a quite steep drop from the 20,000 cases that the country was seeing early August. Health experts don't know why as of yet. They say it could be the high vaccination rate, which is now close to 70%, or the social distancing restrictions, which mainly focused on shutting down the nightlife. Or it could have been due to fewer testing. Singapore also has a stellar vaccination rate. Almost 85% of their population have been fully vaccinated. But they've also been seeing up to 2,500 to 3,000 cases daily this month.
Right, and staying in Singapore, Yeon-seung, which you mentioned, of course, do tell us how this state is faring, especially after transitioning to living with COVID-19 back in the summer, I believe.
Right, so Singapore started easing their social distancing measures since August, but they've gone back on their policies after being thrown off by the high rebound in cases. But Singapore's Prime Minister earlier this month addressed the nation to say that COVID-19 is no longer a dangerous disease and that their lives cannot be paralyzed by fear anymore. He said confidently that their vaccination campaign has been a massive success and they have one of the world's lowest death rates from COVID-19. The country seems determined to press ahead with their exit strategy, which includes limiting access to certain venues for the unvaccinated, no mandatory quarantine for close contact with a COVID-19 patient, and more at-home recovery. They're also gradually opening borders and expanding quarantine exemptions for travelers. I've also mentioned earlier the low caseloads in Japan, and I want to go back to that and talk about the slightly unconventional approach that they're taking in their efforts to return to normal. They're performing social experiments using proof of vaccinations. So what they're doing is that they're slowly lifting bans and limitations on stadiums and restaurants in designated areas to closely monitor the impact of these easing of measures. For example, they've opened up 730 more seats in the Toyota Stadium in the Aichi Prefecture and completely lifted the cap on visitors and operation hours for 50 restaurants in the Saitama Prefecture. And through these precedents, a panel of experts are going to go through and fully determine what policies the nation should introduce as they usher in a new normal.
Right, I see. All right, Yeon-seung, thank you for now, but stay with us for the extended talk.